hygiene and misinformation is something that of the past year we've seen many cases of. And one particular example has been rural India, where there's been a lot of uptake of misinformation around whether it was cures or remedies for COVID 19, in particular, with a number of fairly dubious claims being made on dark social networks, which were shared deep and wide, or for example, even on vaccines, and not just the efficacy, but the side effects or the after effects, leading to widespread rejection and a very slow uptake on vaccines to begin with. And the impact is not just on public health, the impact's also on the fact that it takes therefore longer for these cities, towns, and villages to recover. And when they do recover, the impact on the economy has been the most severe. When we speak about conscious media investment, I'm not entirely sure that it is something that the average advertiser is well apprised of. And we are very, very lucky to have extremely strong partners like Group M, who have taken upon themselves to really scrub not just networks and come back with strong recommendations on social media or dark social networks that we should be on, but equally advise us on brand safety, on and auditing really data and information to the best of what's available in the industry. I think for the average advertiser today, it is still, there's a little bit of science and art in terms of where and how their advertisements are being seen and placed, and equally the kind of endorsements that they can unwittingly define themselves making, as in terms of endorsing either the quality of a channel or of a network, while just chasing what are admittedly some very low hanging GRPs, particularly in local, regional, vernacular markets. As far as influencers are concerned, I think there's no doubt in my mind that influencers are going to evolve from merely harnessing the power of networks to engage, influence, and monetize their target group or their consumer group. Beyond that, to saying what's really a sustainable way to not just build but also safeguard a reputation and build a sustainable, therefore, consumer set that they can connect with on a regular basis, which means declaring right up front any commercial interests, any conflict of interest, maybe fact-checking data, be able to safeguard their reputation amongst their followers. And while I'm sure there will be those who leverage networks or their connections for short-term benefit, that's pretty much par for the course. But the safeguards and guardrails that are coming into play, for example, the recent ASCII guidelines in India about declaring sponsored content. Equally, the invitation by ASCII just recently to invite Google and Facebook, in fact, to be a part of their board of members indicates the ability or the intent of advertising bodies to engage, which are, by the way, formed primarily by advertisers like us, and to engage them, to bring them on board, and equally to therefore involve them and make them a part of the solution. And influencers, therefore, will be ultimately that last part of that jigsaw puzzle, which will have to fit to make this entire ecosystem succeed. Otherwise, we could be at the receiving end of a lot of unfair regulation, which I'm sure none of us would like. I hope that over the next 5 years, what we see is, first of all, a better understanding of the pushes, the pulls, the attractions of social networks, particularly dark social networks, and therefore putting in a system that shall benefit not just the social networks themselves, but also advertisers on the network, and therefore, most importantly, the consumers at the end of that value chain. Because what we need is a better understanding, not just of how these social networks can disseminate information far and wide and very, very quickly, especially amongst closed groups. But equally, what are the guardrails, what are the guidelines, and what is the legal framework that can help protect the most vulnerable? And this is not just a utopic vision. It is something that's very important for countries like India, for sure, but equally for advertisers and for businesses like mine, that want to indeed leverage these networks and reach those consumers, because that's where the growth will be.